Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks and general information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in this digital world of accounting. Today, I'm joined by Chris Downing. He's given me a title, but I'm going to spin the title into Head of MTD at Sage and possibly the entire UK, but also Director of Accounting and Bookkeeping at Sage. Thanks, Chris, for joining us. We're going to talk about a couple of topics that will come on through our news letter, and also we've talked about in the pod, but also a little bit that we know we're coming down the road as well. So firstly, Chris, the main thing I want to bring up is that we released in our newsletter recently that Sage acquired Fyle, a US-based expense card system, and it'd be really good to understand from your perspective kind of why, if you can talk about the acquisition, and what do you think the impact will be for the Sage products and in the end, the UK.
So I think expense management is one of those topics, those categories of software which have not really been nailed properly. And with our acquisition, which is a US-based acquisition, where we already have a deep integration with many Intact customers over there, the feedback's awesome, the efficiency gains there, but also we're on the cusp in terms of change, because the trouble with expense management, it's one of those back office functions which isn't really measured in terms of cost or time. We hate doing it, spreadsheet sort of work, but also it's a case of if people want to implement a new system, the challenges are in terms of maybe employee barriers. There may already be expense cards, digital cards already an issue, and that's too much of a change. And really, our Fyle is one of those amazing tools which is very much built around expense management workflows. It has many integrations, allows, let's say, businesses to continue using what expense digital cards or wallets they already have. But also it has that live visibility of money being spent or money about to be spent. Because I think this day and age where belts are tightening, having visibility of finances is so important. Be able to have that sort of live integration to the finance system is really important. So very much a US first placed approach. But if history says anything, we acquired Sage Intact back in 2017. We took the time to properly understand how we can internationalize Sage Intact, which we've done really well. Because when you think about taxes, expense management is a compliance service and needs to be done right. So it's all about making sure we get the local taxes in the UK and other regions right. Mileage, VAT, that's a nightmare, isn't it? It's all about building out properly and then integrating the right solutions as well. But certainly a very exciting acquisition by Sage.
Cool. And obviously, you talked a lot about the Intact product, mid-tier kind of finance space. And do you feel that Fyle and I guess how big it is and how experienced it is in the space you say it's been around for a while, is more aimed at that larger entity? Or do you think that over time that will be built down into the other Sage products?
It will certainly be built into the other Sage products because I think File's been around since 2016. Okay, so it knows the space so well. But also, when you consider what expense management is, even from let's say a small business with let's say a handful of employees, there's a workflow. Everything from the employee doing an activity, whether it's out of pocket using an expense card, that needs to be validated. There needs to be receipts. There needs an approval process. It needs to be posted to the ledger. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to audited. It's all about workflow. And whether you're a small business or a 1,000 employee business, the workflow and the controls are key. And therefore, it's just about scaling those down. And I think, again, with, let's say, what's happening in the UK with greater digitization and also invoicing on the cusp in, let's say, 3 or 4 years' time, we'll be in a situation where there'll be more businesses who will be more digitized. They'll be seeing the value of real-time information. And as well as, let's say, people want to understand what they're spending or what their employees are spending, there'll be a natural, let's say, greater interest in terms of expense management.
Definitely, I completely agree with you on that. And I think we're getting more and more to, everyone is digitized, everything's automated, everything's at your fingertips. I think, the acquisition of Fyle makes really good sense here. And I think, you in the UK acquired Auto Entry a while ago. And because Auto Entry is mostly about kind of invoices paid in arrears, that's kind of that area. I feel that Fyle complements this. You're building kind of a suite that's covering all areas of expense management. Is that how you view it as well?
Well, if you think about where auto entry sits, and also let's just say you've got the other, let's say, receipt capture tools, and these receipt capture tools are workflow tools designed specifically for accountants and bookkeepers, but also they do have business needs. So whether you're looking at auto entry or Dext or HubDoc or Apron, It's all about that workflow of information, getting receipts into the ledger. But as you say, it's, let's say, back in time. It's almost looking, something's happened, getting into the system to remove the recoding. They all have elements of expense management, but actually, do they actually own expense management? Have they been specifically built around it? And the answer is no. It's been receipt capture or OCR or scanning a bank statement, surfacing the details of that invoice to put into the ledger. Workflows around expense management has always been like a secondary theme to that solution. But also it's a case of, when you look at OCR, that's evolving as well. So if you think about the space, some of the ledgers have OCR built within the bookkeeping tool itself. So it's not an auto entry or a DEX or another receipt capture tool. So the technology is evolving all the time. It's all about the workflows, ease of use.
Yeah. So you said, with Intact, Strategic Play, I think Canadian-based business. Am I correct in that it was Canadian-based?
No, actually, India, Bangalore. It was founded in Bangalore.
Was it? Oh, there you go. This shows what I know. But as you said, you had to kind of evolve it for the different jurisdictions. With Fyle being US-based, how long do you think is realistic that it'd be over in the UK? Do we think this like a couple of years? Do we think it's like a couple of months?
I wouldn't say a couple of months. Let's just say soon. Okay. As I said, it's really important to understand and get the local compliance right. And as therefore, so if you imagine, first things is about making sure the integration already exists, improving the branding in terms of where Fyle sits as a Sage Intact solution. Then it's actually a case of focusing on making sure the awareness of it, but also more importantly, when he brings it over to the UK, making sure there's a proper plan in place. So therefore, I would say soon. I'm not going to put a date, not this year.
Maybe early 2026. That's what I'm going with. It feels a reasonable time.
2026 seems like a big year, I think, for a lot of people.
It does, yeah. There's a lot going to be happening in 2026. Okay, so we've had Fyle, but the other big announcement that was probably the main one that came out in our recent news list was the fact that MTD for corporation tax has kind of been silently just removed from the plans now from HMRC. HMRC. They were talking about the digital strategy, and as a side note, they basically said, MTD for corporation tax will no longer continue. From my understanding, like from your take, you're like, this isn't a surprise. It's been kicked down the road so many times. So what's your take on it? Firstly, do you think that this is not always going to happen, but it's been on the cards for a while? And also, do you think there's any negative consequences of it not happening?
Let's take a step back. MTD is 10 years old now. When the last time anyone did a deep dive on MTD for corporation tax, that was a consultation about 5 years ago. And I think that was at the same time where income tax, MTD for income tax was actually, the second deferral. But it was almost it was like learning curve. When you think about taxes and the complications behind it, VAT is okay. MTD for income tax is more complicated. Corporation tax is even more complex. And if you think about what you've been observing in the market from those in the testing of MTD, the challenges software providers need to deliver in terms of the quarterly update, as well as building a brand new MTD tax return, it's actually all about doing things right, properly, not creating too much noise in the market. But also it's a case of the deferral of MTD for corporation tax as a theme is possibly the right one, because e-invoicing seems more inevitable in the UK than ever. Obviously, we're still waiting for that date. But also, when you think about the market, the majority of limited or corporate entities in the UK are already VAT registered, probably about 70% possibly. So they're already maintaining digital records. And the whole point of MTD isn't just about having a live tax calculation. It's all about improving the accuracy of the underlying records to ensure people are paying the right amount of taxes and not making mistakes. So therefore, a combination of e-invoice in the future, a lot of business already VAT registered using software solutions, but also it's a case of that deferral of MTD for CT means, what does the future look like? We're going to be in a future where all the taxes are going to be serviced on the new enterprise platform from HMRC. So therefore, when you look between the lines, it may not be a limited company reporting quarterly through software to HMRC. You actually see the software providers having to lean in again and build brand new corporation tax calculations solutions to actually integrate with the new platform. So there again,
Okay.
there will be changes, there'll be challenges, there'll be a lot more webinars, but the key thing is to the
We'll
key
see a
thing
lot
is
more of
to
you.
yeah, I know, yeah. But the key thing to understand is the general digitalization of taxes and also the improvement in the quality of that information, which everyone can see down the line.
Okay, well, this is a really good then topic to talk about. HMRC said about this strategy that you said about the enterprise plan, but they've not got a really good track record of actually delivering anything that's well thought out, well integrated, and on time and on budget. So, what do you think is a realistic time frame for them to actually build this new platform? Like, are we going to be waiting another 10 years? Do you think?
Well, I think the good thing is the foundations are already being built. So the
Yeah.
new platform is really from an accountant's point of view and bookkeeper's point of view, your experience of the agent service accounts. That's effectively your window into the new platform. So the platform's already there. And for
Yep.
someone who is working very closely with HMRC and seeing the team in operation, the MTD team behind income tax over the past 2 years is a completely different team from the past. So
Okay.
whether that's in terms of their direction of travel, their transparency in what they're doing, but also the consultations which they're performing. So if you imagine just
Okay.
something like income tax, all the little workflows, all the little experiences which you may be having an interaction with, whether it's a small business owner or an accountant, they're doing lots of consultations with accountants in the room, going through the workflows, going through those designing, understanding the pain points, making sure that gets built properly. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
fine. Some mistakes are made on the way, some learning curves in terms of when something goes live. Oh, we need to tweak that, but they're tweaking it and getting it right there thereafter going forward. So if anything, it's almost a case of the platform's built. It's almost thinking about how you actually integrate that platform and what should the experience be. The experience may be
Yep.
even better. So you look at MTD for income tax, look at self-assessment. That tax return has about 500 or so endpoints.
Yep.
Those endpoints are reduced by about 40 to 50% under MTD. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
inefficiencies. There are
Yeah.
efficiencies
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
how things are being built.
Okay, well that's a big positive, and I think one of the, like you said it earlier in that one of the big reasons for the creation of MTD 10 or so years ago was to reduce the tax gap, and that was to help reduce errors, but also to create a bit more visibility around that. And the the weird thing I think from all the analysis is actually one of the biggest areas for the tax gap or perceived areas of the tax gap was in corporation tax. So they still need to fill that. But my viewpoint is that's unlike maybe income tax, which is probably more error driven. My gut is that corporation tax may be more manipulation of the tax system because you've got, being real here, you've got larger entities that are on the
Mm-hmm.
corporation tax scheme and
Yeah.
therefore have advisors and maybe able to take educate risks rather than, I guess, the lower end where it's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I've clicked something and I've actually done something wrong. Um, so maybe that's a different approach that's needed. MTD in itself and the objectives of MTD wouldn't have solved that problem. But you talk about e-invoice, you talk about the whole digitization of the tax system, business software. How long do you think we are, or how far off do you think we are from that fully integrated, connected way of actually doing business records? Because that is a completely finger in the air
It
job.
is, yeah.
But
I personally, I think they need to land MTD for income tax well and complete. So
yep,
if you imagine we're all heading that 2028 date when £20,000 threshold comes in. Once you're in for 3 years, which will almost suggest at around the 28, 29 date, they'll be say, well, everyone will be in. But then also when you say everyone, we've only been talking about sole traders and landlords. What
yeah,
about partnerships? Okay, there are only 350,000, 360,000 partnerships in the UK. But then what
it's a
about
lot.
the other 7 or 8 million taxpayers who are still doing their taxes under self-assessment in the HMRC portal?
Yep,
So really, there's got to be almost like a transition, almost a complete close down of the old world, and therefore every individual should be filing their taxes digitally in some shape or form to the new platform. So you
yep,
imagine
via
that's going to
connected
take a couple
software, I assume.
connected software or whatever, but that's going to take a couple of years. So let's be bold. Let's say 2032 for that transition because you need to give time and awareness and everything. But in the meantime, you'll have invoicing kicking off, which also be hopefully going in phases. So probably VAT registered businesses of a certain size, and then suddenly those non-VAT registered ones. But again, that will take a couple of years to embed and to be complete. So let's be bold. 2035, 10 years time.
I mean, it feels
So,
like it
yeah,
feels like a realistic time frame, to be honest, Chris. Like you say, a lot of this stuff's going to probably happen in parallel. We're a bit, I guess, I don't know what you are. I'm a bit disappointed that we've got to the end of the summer and we're still kind of waiting for some, sorry, some clarity about what this e-invoicing scheme from the government's
yeah.
going to be like, because they promised something and kind of made a big hurrah about it going into the summer and said we'd have some information. As far as I'm aware, we're still waiting on it. But I think that's a big trigger. I think if you start mandating to some extent e-invoicing, then it kind of forces digitization. But this is where some of those systems, we come back to it, like expense capture, for example, such as auto entry, Dext, HubDoc, those ones that are built into systems, they become less required because now you've got the digital sharing of documents between systems. So do you feel that those systems will pivot to be kind of an e-invoicing collection or management system, or do you think that actually they'd just be replaced by the likes of Sage, Xero, QuickBooks, Reagent, all just sharing information between each other?
I think it's going to be a combination because when you consider e-invoicing, and I think one of the delays which we're seeing from the UK is actually we're doing the right thing. We're observing and learning, and we'll implement the right solution. Because even though
Yep.
we're only like sort of one of 3 European countries haven't implemented e-invoicing, the rest have at different successes and different
Yep.
approaches. So therefore, we're able to actually take the learnings in terms of what's worked well and not replicate what hasn't worked well at all. So that timing is very important. But in terms of how those receipt capture tools are evolving, yeah. So for example, in France, e-invoicing is the big thing. So auto entry supporting the whole e-invoicing workflow. Therefore, it's just been an extension because other regions
Yep.
don't operate like the UK in terms of legislation and bookkeeping. And that's
True.
the fascinating thing. Sometimes we just sit in our little UK bubble, thinking the whole world operates like us in terms of how we do
Yeah.
our taxes and books. But that's not the case. And I think that one of the interesting things working in Sage is actually observing how those other countries operate. And therefore, it's a case of the fact that these tools will always be in some sort of existence because even though e-invoicing will encourage that digital handshake of an invoice, people or an employee or someone will still have paper records of some sort. That still needs to be processed in the good old fashioned, let's say, OCR technology. But it's all about having a single solution, a single workflow. And therefore, these platforms will enable that digitization of all types of data to flow through. Because even now, if you think about the observations of MTD of income tax, we're talking about getting bank data. A lot of users are still nervous about open banking, not allowing bank
They
feeds.
are.
So people will be relying on bank statements for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a conversation with a client the other day, and their bookkeeper, and we were talking about two-factor authentication and just needing a little app on your phone,
Yeah.
that essentially you can just read a code from, and they were refusing to put it on their phone because they were worried about data and security. I was like, well, I'm not really sure where to kind of go with this because you need something
Yeah.
for a security for the business perspective. You need to do something. So I understand that there's a lot of education that's needed. But I think I'll just touch on that one element you picked up in that, we are now one of a few European countries that haven't done something on the e-invoicing side. And normally we like to put ourselves out as one of the four, at the forefront of the leaders in finance, in tech. And it does feel that the disruption in this country from a governmental and running perspective over the last probably 10 years have kind of pushed us more to the back of that. Do you feel that that's a fair assessment, that we're now, like you say, kind of now watching what others have done and trying to learn it and catch up to some extent?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not a politician. I don't know how the inner workings of government work operate. But when you consider themes of technology which impact, let's say, the financial legislation, it's not just about the government. You have the Treasury, you have
Yep.
HMRC who are implementing it. Then also within HMRC are in communication with the accounting bodies and other key parties. So if you imagine if anything like the UK loves a conversation, a
I
consultation.
know.
Okay. And therefore it's all about, yes, everything involves change, but also everyone wants to appreciate what the outcomes will be. And I think
Yeah.
this is what we do in the UK. We may not be as quick or agile on some of these really big rocks to crack, or these themes of technology will have a massive impact. But I would like to think that we do it in a way which will actually work, operate, create the least amount of disruption, but also bring the greatest amount of impact and quality. And I think if you look at those big themes, which has happened over the last 25 years, I only just missed the implementation of self-assessment. So Ryan, I think you were a little schoolboy as well at the same time. But that was a massive change for those who were involved with it. But you imagine how going from, let's say, calculating payroll on A3 analysis paper. I remember doing that, going to software, then RTI. When you think IXBRL of financial statements, we've always had these themes of technology, which we've either kicked up saying, oh, why are we doing this? And now it's just second nature. But what we did do, go through consultation, understand what it is, and do the testing, and then things were better afterwards.
I do wonder if we, like you say, we love a conversation in the UK. We all like it to have our view and our opinion and say it, even if it, you know, has no impact in the end. At least we feel like we've contributed to some extent. But I do wonder if the way we've worked in the UK and the way we work is now too slow compared to how quickly things evolve, like AI and how AI is coming in and making an impact around the world, including the UK, is dramatic. And I kind of compare the UK maybe to a traditional software system that needs to go through an evolution and change in the way it will adapt to make itself modern. And yeah, let's hope that as a country we get there. It sounds like we are changing the way we work. You're saying that from an MTD perspective, and the way HMRC are now pivoted their self-assessment team. So maybe that is now changing in the background and will lead to faster and more impactful change that keeps up with emerging tech trends. But you know, this isn't the focus of this this conversation. I feel I've taken it off into now politics. So let's bring it back. let's bring it back to Sage and what they're doing, and something that has come across our desks at the Digital Disruptors, but has yet made it into the podcast, has yet made it into the newsletter. It's something that I think is huge, really. Like we've got we've got AI, and everyone is talking about it and knows it's going to have an impact, but we're still waiting for those big tangible rollouts that make us go, wow, we can see the difference. We need to change the way we work. And so many software companies have gone, yep, I'm rolling this out. It's got AI in it. Rolling this out. It's got AI in it. But it doesn't really feel like it's actually AI that's driving that. They've just put an AI badge in it. But there was a big announcement that I picked up from Sage recently, which is that they are not using AI as the, I guess, the objective or the trigger point or the buzzword. They've now created a kind of an ultimate goal that anything they do regarding AI, anything you do regarding AI, will lead towards, and that is eliminating financial close. And I think that's an amazing and very lofty objective to go through, because financial close has literally been the cornerstone of accounting for, well, way beyond my existence. And changing it from periodic, whenever the close is or whenever we're reviewing, to do all the work and then stop and then wait for the next period, but do it continuously, is a huge shift. So I guess going back to consultation, is this something that Sage have been mulling over for a while? Has this been something that you love to do, and it only feels that now you can kind of bring it to the fore? And I guess, is this something that is going to be the driving force behind everything that Sage does, like from a strategic point, for the upcoming years?
Yeah, and I think this is where I've never been more excited about what Sage are doing. So when you think about the AI space, it's not about having a badge. It's about capabilities, actually showcasing what impact AI brings. And this is actually going to encourage digitalization, because AI is desirable. Once you see the outputs, the capabilities, you do get excited about it. But also you need to ensure that AI is being implemented and shown in the right places to the right people. So when you consider the audiences which Sage work with, you've got the CFOs of large corporate entities, you've got accountants and bookkeepers of various sizes and ilks, and then also you've got the small business owners themselves, where their needs are slightly different. So when you think about the financial close is going to be supporting the CFOs of large corporates, because they want to be having a handle on the numbers, be focused upon the next week or the next month, where that business is going. But also, when you think about accountants and bookkeepers, let's imagine we've now left accountancy, haven't we? We're still recovering accountants, aren't we, Ryan? But when you consider the work that we were doing, did we really enjoy doing those working papers, reconciling the bank, making sure the age debtor report agrees to the trial balance? It's a case of,
well, I'm weird, so yes.
Yeah, but did you enjoy it because you wanted to find an error, a mistake, and then
Yeah,
go into it?
yeah.
All right. But did the client care? The clients did
No.
not care. The client cared about the outputs, what guidance you're going to be providing. So
Yeah.
when you think about the fact that the profession is going to be even more busier. So we're talking about MTD. No one's talking about actually what 2027 is going to bring. So we've got payrolling benefits in kind. We've got the closure of the company's house portal. We've also got
Yep.
the reporting of the P&L for companies. So actually, when you think about that quarter of being January, February, March 27, accountants and bookkeepers will be delivering quarter three of MTD for income tax and supporting their corporate clients with October, November, December, and January, February year ends, wanting to get their accounts done by the 31st of March. Plus, also,
Yep.
all those companies which actually file their own accounts through web filing will possibly be seeking an accountant for the very first time. So the profession is going to be very busy. And therefore, as a
Yes.
profession, it's all about close, whether it's closing down on a £100 million company trial balance and sales ledger and purchase ledger, or simply just dealing with an MTD quarterly update in terms of are the records complete, has the bank been reconciled, can we press update on the submission? So it's all about that scaling, and close is all about having the confidence in the numbers. Everything's
Yep.
been categorized to the right areas. The anomalies, if they are there, have been detected. An anomaly
Yep.
could be just a duplication. Then also fixing them, because like you enjoyed the close because you find an error. How did you fix that error? You had sat down. Is it a sales or purchase adjustment? Is it a
Yeah.
journal
Yeah. Work
adjustment?
out what it
And then
is.
go
Yeah.
down and fixing it. But that's what
Yep.
AI can do. And that's what our AI agents are capable of doing. We dropped that last month in terms of that agent. And then the MTD agent, which will be released very, very soon, will be doing similar activities.
And I think the other massive win from this, as you kind of evolve this out and go from period close to continuous, is that a big fear and a big worry for most accounting firms with MTD is it creates more pinch points. So we've always had kind of that build up to the end of January, and usually kind of April, May time used to get really busy for a lot of March year ends, and people want to turn around those figures quickly. But that meant resourcing and managing work became really difficult. And then bringing now 4 period ends, actually that becomes even more challenging to manage that. So if we can switch away from close to continuous, you're spreading your workload because you're
Yeah.
dipping into clients, you're reviewing them on a regular basis, making sure that there are anomalies that are getting fixed, re-educating the system and the platform to make sure that you eliminate and reduce those over time. But what this will do, with that massive benefit of reducing kind of the peaks and troughs in an account's year, is it switches the skill set completely. It's going from that puzzle lover like myself to some extent, where you're going through and you're going, okay, I've now got this little thing to dive into, spend a few days on, churn it out, and I've got that lovely little, that good feeling of completing something, to now going, okay, I need a tech brain to be proactive and look at what the system is doing and how it's like bringing outputs and tweak things. I'm not sure traditional accountants and the way we've worked, the way we've been trained, the way we've been educated, are built for that new world yet. So I think in conjunction with changing the whole process, we've got to work out a re-education system. So if there's one thing I would go back to Sage on and say, I think this is an amazing shining light. Actually, this is probably the best objective I've seen from a business, especially regarding AI for the last few years. But I think you probably need to also, as you do so well on MTD, educate the accounting bodies and the training platforms to go, we need to change how we work to be ready for that. Is that something that Sage already have on their radar?
It is. And if you think there are
Brilliant.
actually two themes of work there. One is having a really close relationship with the professional bodies, which we do. But also it's actually starting at a level down. You think about colleges and universities where you're having students thinking, I wanted to be an accountant, but actually how are they training to be an accountant? It shouldn't be just about reading books and understanding what a T account is, but actually understanding what software is all about. And this is where actually we probably don't shout about this enough. We are one of the main providers, Sage, in colleges and universities in terms of bookkeeping training tools, from
Yep.
bookkeeping and payroll. But also it's the fact that we are doing this on scale. So if a student is going through an exercise of processing sales invoices or reconciling a bank account, we've actually got a checker in the background. So a teacher can actually support 1,000 students And the auto checker is marking all the transactions automatically, which means that actually, as we start to evolve and release some of these tools and the user experience and the capabilities of AI, the next generation of accountants will be more focused on understanding the outputs. Yes, I'll have the understanding of getting the inputs in, but actually how to use the technology. But then we've got the middle grade. So if you imagine you've got experienced accountant bookkeepers been in the trade for 15, 20, 30 years, it's actually how do you use the tools? And our focus has always been that user experience. It needs to be intuitive, easy to use. And we probably put so much more effort in the initial experience. How do you surface that capability in the software, as well as the actual software delivering the outcomes of the work as well?
Definitely. I think it's great that you've already got this on your radar. It's, as I said, in my opinion, one of the best objectives that I've seen a business go for. It is revolutionizing the way accountants work, which is a huge weight, a huge. 1 second. Sorry, my daughter's coming in. A huge objective and a huge, I guess, big win for the way we're working. But it does mean that we're also at the end of our live show. So I think it's a perfect way to wrap this up. Thanks, Chris, for coming. I've been quite distracted here. Thanks, Chris, for coming on the show and talking about this.
My pleasure.
If you are watching it and you did like this and you want to make sure you catch future episodes, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel or our Digital Disruptors page on LinkedIn, and you make sure you'll see it every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.